नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति विकास स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So just to recap what has happened in the previous session, there was a question at the end of the first canto, 19th chapter. Parikshit Maharaj wants to know what is the best thing to be done at the time of death, what is to be chanted, what is to be remembered. And for this question, Shukadeva Goswami is responding in the second canto, first chapter. So he begins the chapter by appreciating the question that is raised by Parikshit Maharaj, because this is the most important question every one of us should ask, and Parikshit Maharaj was quite appropriate in asking the most relevant question. So Shukadeva Goswami appreciates it, saying that your question, Lokahitam, he says, this will bring auspiciousness to the people of the world, because by knowing the proper answer for this you will be benefited. Then as Parikshit was in his question, he says that I want to know what is to be done and what is not to be done also, he is saying. So Shukadeva Goswami begins the chapter with what is not to be done. He explains about how we should not engage ourselves in giving oral reception to thousands and thousands of topics which are not Krishna conscious. Then he also explains about the characteristics of a person who is a Griha Medi and who is a Grihastha, because he very clearly defines Apashyatam Atma Tattvam. He says, if you cannot know the purpose of life, you do not know the process of self-realization, then your life is just a waste. You're just wasting the valuable human form of life. So he speaks about how one should not waste his human form of life by hearing all kinds of nonsense things which will not help us to make progress in Krishna consciousness. And then second, he further elaborates the characteristic of a person who is not able to take up the process of self-realization. They are the Griha Medis, who are only interested in trying to satisfy their senses. So he explains what are their characteristics. What are their characteristics? Their characteristics involve just eating and sleeping, and in the night they just sleep and engage in sex, and during the day they work hard, they bring money to take care of their economic growth. So he points out that. So then he says that it's best to engage yourself in glorifying the Lord. So then he establishes that. Then he says that somehow or other you should engage in glorifying the Lord. Then he gives an example of the best way to glorify the Lord. You can see with a great personality, transcendentalists relish glorifying the Lord. And transcendentalists are absorbed in the glorification of the Lord, and that we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So then there is a question that is raised. So okay, is there anybody who has done it? I myself is an example. Shukadeva Goswami says that I myself was on the beginning was into impersonalism. I was kind of a Brahmavadi, but then after hearing from my father the glorious Srimad Bhagavatam, I completely got captivated. So then he concludes that the best thing to be done is to give oral reception to the Srimad Bhagavatam. And now he explains in text 10, Srila Shukadeva Goswami emphasizes the point that we should therefore hear the Srimad Bhagavatam with rapt attention, because what will be the consequence of giving rapt attention to the Srimad Bhagavatam? Fear will go. Then there is an important point which is being said. And there is an important word that is used in the verse. Yasya Shraddha Dhatam. So one will develop unflinching faith to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Having set the standard to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, which will result in developing complete faith, now he establishes that of all the processes that is even given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is particularly emphasized on the pure devotion service to the Lord. So that could be achieved. The pure devotion to the Lord could be achieved by engaging in chanting the names of the Lord. Etan nirvidhyamananam ichchatam akuto bhayam yoginam nripanirnitam harer namanu kirtanam. So he establishes that of the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam and Smaranam are the primary process. Of the Shravanam, Kirtanam and Smaranam, Kirtanam is the most important. Anukirtanam, as he says in this verse, Harer Nama Anukirtanam. So that is what Shukadeva Goswami is stressing, and we all know that for that Anukirtanam, what is required is a good Shravanam is required, because Shravanam is the heart of the Kirtan, and then your engagement in Kirtanam will certainly lead to Smaranam, the absorption of the Lord. Okay, so we stop there. Now go to the next verse, next 2 verses. The theme is that verses 12 and 13 speaks about the value of a long useless life against King Katwanga's success of a short life. This is how we gave the theme as. That's what is being discussed. Now there is a obvious, okay, you have said about the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Now Parikshit has got a concern. Oh, you know what? I have only 7 days left. What should I do? Only 7 days left for me. Time is ticking. Every second is moving. So in that sense, Shukadeva Goswami is now going to speak further. Oh, I have very little time left. What practice am I supposed to follow? One should not worry in this way. This is from Srila Vishnu Chakravarti's commentary. Just put this word there. King pramattasya bahuvi parokshair hayanairiha varam muhurtam viditam ghatate shreyase yataha. What is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. It's very interesting, Srila Prabhupada's translation here. He translates Viditam, that conscious being, in his translation, Prabhupada translates it as full consciousness. Better a moment of full consciousness, he says. So we will see that. So living hundreds of years without any knowledge, or a moment with full consciousness of the supreme interest. Shukadeva Goswami asserted that there is no use in living hundreds of years without any knowledge of the problems of life. Better to live for a moment with full consciousness. Now, Srila Prabhupada, in his translation to some of the verses in the Bhagavad Gita, he particularly uses this word, full consciousness. This full consciousness sometimes could be interchangeably used for Krishna consciousness. Full consciousness means Krishna consciousness. You are conscious. Now we are conscious of our existence. But what is that full consciousness? Full consciousness means our consciousness should be absorbed in the thought of the Lord. That's what we are expected to raise ourselves to. That's the purpose of the human life. To be in full consciousness. Full consciousness of not sense gratification. Full consciousness of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, which is Krishna consciousness. Now, let's see some of the verses how Prabhupada translates it. It's very interesting. Bhagavad Gita 5:29. What's the verse? Famous verse. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhurdam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam shantim ruchiti. Prabhupada translates it like this. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary. So this is what Prabhupada is pointing out. Very interesting. Now, so you observed in chapter 5, text 29, Prabhupada translate like this. And also now we will see Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sakta Manaf Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Samagrang Mam Yatagnyasasi Tachrunu. Now Prabhupada translates like this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me. This full consciousness of me is referring to the Krishna consciousness. With mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Okay. Now, again, Prabhupada speaks about it in Sadi Bhutadi Daivam Mam. Yes. Sadi Bhutadi Daivam Mam, Sadi Yaghyam Chaye Viduhu, Prayana Kale Pichamam, Te Vidur Yukta Chetasaha. So Srila Prabhupada says, those in full consciousness of me, you see, again he's using the same thing, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Now again, bhaktyamam avijhanati yavan yaschasmi tatvatah tato maam tatvato jnatva vishateta danantaram. Srila Prabhupada says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, again Prabhupada says this, full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Now again, in another purport, which I would like to point out, Bhagavad Gita, Jnanena tuda jnanam, yesham nashitam atmanah, tesham adityavach jnanam prakashayati tatparam. So when in translating that verse, Prabhupada, those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. So here Srila Prabhupada means by Krishna consciousness is the full consciousness. Again Prabhupada says, after passing through many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders into Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him. So here, that's the point we were just discussing, that when we are in full consciousness, it means Krishna consciousness. Again, the same purport, Prabhupada says, real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. So this is what Prabhupada is referring to again and again. You see in this particular purport again. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and under him learn what Krishna consciousness is, for Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all innocence as the sun drives away darkness. Are you getting the point? So that's why I was just picking up these specific quotes. Okay, we will go back to the purport here, what Prabhupada says. So we will again read this line because it's an important one. Shukadeva Goswami asserted that there is no use in living hundreds of years without any knowledge of the problems of life. Better to live for a moment with full consciousness of the supreme interest to be fulfilled. The supreme interest of life is to return home back to Godhead, where life is eternal with full knowledge and bliss. We should know in perfect consciousness that human life is bestowed upon the conditioned soul to achieve spiritual success, and the easiest possible procedure to attain this end is to chant the holy name of the Lord. Okay, and Prabhupada quotes from the Markandeya Purana. Sri Goswami Ji says that one should neither blaspheme the devotee of the Lord nor indulge in hearing others who are engaged in belittling a devotee of the Lord. A devotee should try to restrict the vilifier by cutting out his tongue, and if one is unable to do so, one should commit suicide rather than hear the blaspheming of the devotee of the Lord. The conclusion is that one should neither hear nor allow vilification of a devotee of the Lord. So Prabhupada is speaking about in developing the Krishna consciousness, as it is advised before, etan nirvidhyamananam ichata kuto bhayam. So in that particular verse, the Harer Namanu Kirtanam is glorified. Then the purport, he very much gives warnings about 10 offenses against the holy name of the Lord. So if you really want to make progress, then don't do Satam Ninda. Don't engage in Satam Ninda. Everything is totally ruined. All your efforts will become useless. So here it is being pointed out. Prabhupada is pointing out in this purport. So the human form, even that one full moment you use it properly in Krishna's service. Don't don't mess up with your practice of spiritual life. So he's giving a warning. And now we should not take this statement also literally. One moment of full consciousness is enough. Oh, one moment I was fully conscious. No. That one moment of full consciousness will drive you to be 24 hours Krishna conscious. That will form as an impetus to take up Krishna consciousness. So that's what we should properly understand. So I many times I've spoken about this incident. Nehavikramana asosti pratyavayona vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayan. Prabhupada, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So little bit of endeavor in this practice of Krishna consciousness will save one from the greatest danger. So I did little endeavor. Fine. I'm settled. Now I will do whatever. That's not the point. You should not misunderstand the advice that is given by Krishna. Oh, little bit of endeavor will save one from the greatest danger. So then how about dedicating completely our life? Same thing, in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam also. Same thing, Shukadeva Goswami concludes at the end of the 2nd chapter. Mriyamanam, he says, oh, at the time of death, this Ajamila inadvertently, not knowingly, inadvertently he chanted the names of the Lord. And what was the result? He went back home, back to Godhead. So for those who consciously chant, what will be the result? So that's in that sense we should see. That's the proper way of looking at the conclusions of scriptures. This verse 12, 13, 14. So here Srila Shukadeva Goswami is giving assurance. So don't worry. You are worrying that you are only having 7 days. Now I'll give you an example of a person who did not have 7 days. What happened to him? I'll give you confidence. Okay, here. Katvango nama rajarishir jnate jnatve yattam iha yushah muhurtat sarvam utsrujya ghatavan abhayam harim. The saintly king Katvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from the material activities, not forgetting the prime duty of life. Example, Maharaj Katvanga. So this is the title we gave. Maharaja Katvanga was invited by the demigods in the higher planets to fight demons, and as a king he fought the battles to the full satisfaction of the demigods. The demigods, being fully satisfied with him, wanted to give him some benediction for material enjoyment. But Maharaj Katvanga, being very much alert to his prime duty, inquired from the demigods about his remaining duration of life. This means that he was not as anxious to accumulate some material benediction from the demigods as he was to prepare himself for the next life. On the contrary, we can see, and now I am not reading the purport, please pay attention here. On the contrary, we can see, Maharaj Katvanga's inquiry we can think about, and we can think about the inquiry of Hiranyakashipu. What was Hiranyakashipu's inquiry? What did he ask Brahma? His inquiry was completely different. How can I live in this body eternally? But Katvanga's Maharaj's inquiry, how much time I have left in this body? See the vast difference, gulf of difference between the devotee and the demon. Okay. The king at once left the heavenly kingdom, which is always full of material enjoyment of the highest standard, coming down to this earth, took ultimate shelter of this all-safe personality of Godhead. He was successful in his great attempt and achieved liberation. This attempt, even for a moment, by the saintly king was successful because he was always alert to his prime duty. Maharaj Parikshit was thus encouraged by the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, even though he had only 7 days left in his life, to execute the prime duty of hearing the glories of the Lord in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you may say, how much time Maharaj Katvanga he had? 1 moment, exactly. Yeah. So the 1 moment in the planetary system is it's again a very short time. So we had a very short time. So Prabhupada says that the king at once left the heavenly kingdom, which is always full of material enjoyment of the high standard, and coming down to the earth took ultimate shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he immediately came down. So that's it. So Srila Vishnu Shankara Thakur also he says this. This is proved by the example of Katvanga on the side of the Devatas conquered the demons. The Devatas were pleased and requested him to ask a benediction. He said, "First please tell me how much more time I have to live." They answered, "You have only a moment to live." He was silent. Quickly he came to the earth and surrendered to the Lord. That's the point. Okay, and there is an interesting incident that is mentioned in Puranas. So once Lomasa Rishi was deeply engaged in meditation. Okay, so it was on the bank of a sea. So Narada Muni was Narada Muni was he was coming by the side of that place, and then he was asking Lomasa Rishi, "Why are you sitting in the corner of the beach? It's very hot. There is no shelter. You could have one hut. You could be sitting under something, and then it will be very helpful for you." But then Lomasa Rishi responded that there is no time to waste. I don't have time to waste in anything else. I'm engaged in the Lord's service. You know the lifespan of Lomasa Rishi, right? How long he lives. His lifespan is Brahma's 100 years. Just every time one Brahma goes away, one hair will fall from his body. That is his lifespan. And he says, what he says? Sorry, I don't have time. I have to be engaged in Krishna's service. And also we have Chanakya Pandit's very good instruction. Chanakya Pandit says that 1 moment lost also, you cannot get it back by spending how many? so many gold coins or diamonds, whatever you give, you can't get. The time is now 11:05:56. Oh, I want to rewind my tape to 11:05:54. Sorry, sir, you have lost. We have to be conscious in using the time properly. So that's the main message here. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to retrace this, which is also a very good instruction Srila Prabhupada gave. So Prabhupada spoke on this incident of Sadhava Jivava. I'm going to just read this small section. As I told you that Sadhava Jivava Marova. There was a nice story the other day that I told you, that a sage is giving different kinds of blessings to the different types of persons. So to a king's son, a prince, he blessed Rajaputra Chiranjiva. Oh, you are a king's son. Prince, you live forever. And Muniputra, the son of a saintly person, he blessed him. Najiva. You don't live. Rajaputra Chiranjiva, Muniputra Najiva. And Sadhu, devotee, he blessed him. Jivova Marova, that you live or you die as you like. And there was a butcher, he blessed him. Najiva Namaro. So you don't die, you don't live. So these words are very significant. Thus I have already explained. Still I am explaining. The prince is enjoying sense, that's all. So he has got enough facility for sense enjoyment. So in his next life is hellish. Because if you indulge in sex life, then Krishna will give you facility to have sex life 3 times in an hour. Just like the pigeons, the monkeys, the sparrows. They are all very sexually strong. You have seen it. So that facility is given. So princely order, thereafter sense enjoyment. So he is blessed that better you live forever. Because after your death, you do not know what is going to happen to you. So you are going to get a hellish life. Better you live for some time. Go on with your enjoyment. And Muniputra Najiva, Brahmachari, working under guidance, under strict disciplinary guidance of spiritual master, he is blessed. Najiva, you better die because you are so trained to enter the kingdom of God. So why should you take so much trouble? Better you die and go back to Godhead. Najiva. And a devotee he blessed. Jivava Marova. My dear devotee, either you live or you die. The same thing. And the butcher he blessed him. Najiva Namaro. You don't live, don't die. What is to do? His living condition is so abominable. From the morning he has to slaughter so many animals. See the blood stains, the ghastly scene. That is his livelihood. So what a horrible life this is. So don't live, don't die also. Because after death, he's going to be in so much hellish condition. Nobody can describe. So both life, living condition and death, after death, condition is very horrible. I'm just relating this particular incident because this shows how a human life should be used properly in Krishna's service. Right? That's the major theme here Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out. So now, after having explained these 2 verses, Shukadeva Goswami is going to further explain what other steps can be taken to remember the Lord. What are the other ways by which you can absorb in the Lord. Okay. Detachment from family life and become free from the fear of death and practice to meditate on Paramatma. So he literally in this upcoming verses you will see he will speak about how we can gradually detach from the family life and then how you can have to focus your mind, withdraw the senses and the mind from sense objects. Literally a kind of Ashtanga yoga system he will be prescribing. We will see one by one. Okay. Tapyetar hi kauravya saptaham jivitavadihi upakalpaya tat sarvam tavadyat samparayakam. Maharaj Parishit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time, you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. Indirectly, the Goswami told Maharaj Parishit that he should take shelter of the sound representation of the Lord for the 7 days, still remaining in the duration of his life and thus get himself liberated. In other words, everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as it was recited by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. So the rituals are not formal, but there are also some favorable conditions which are required to be carried out as instructed hereafter. Now, this is the problem when such a perfect system is given. It's like we have the spiritual master, we have the Shastras, we have the devotees, but are we ready to take it up? This is the question. This is one incident which is, we exactly do not have the reference from the Puranas, but it's a good lesson that we can learn. This is once quoted by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. There was once Narada Muni, okay, he came to, he was actually having a discussion with the Supreme Lord. He's saying that, oh my dear Lord, there are so many jivas who are struggling in this material world. You have to empower, you have to bring them back to your lotus feet. And Vishnu said, I have no problem, okay, you go, you try. I'm ready to accept, you bring whomsoever you want. So Narada Muni came once to a Grahastha. So he was requesting him, okay, you know what? I have the message for you. Come, let's go to Vaikuntha. I'm ready to take you. Then this family man was saying that, please wait. My son has to, he is now almost in the stage of appearing for an exam and he has to complete his studies. And after this responsibility is over, I will certainly come. So he comes next time. Then the son will be married. Son will have children. And he will say that he has children. You please consider, I have to have some responsibilities with his children. I have to make him a devotee. And then later, you please come, I will be ready by that time. So Narada Muni, again he goes back, again he comes. Then he sees that when he comes back to the house, he does not see anymore the father. He sees the son doing some puja, the deities and all those things. And he couldn't find the father. He said the father already died. Then he saw some puppies. Then he saw the dog. So Narada Muni, because he was so spiritually elevated, he could see that that's the same person has become a dog near that house. So then what he did, so he was calling him, the dog was not ready to come. It was just roaming around, the puppies around the house. So then again, next time when he came to see, he saw a body of a cockroach which is just roaming around on the altar. So this is the incident that is being mentioned, that because of the powerful attachment, we just reject the bona fide process that is given to us. It's all because of attachment. We are in the slumber of ignorance. We do not know the value of the spiritual life. So this is the point that we learn. But here we can see Shukadeva Goswami had 7 days, but he was ready to hear from Shukadeva Goswami. Parikshit Maharaj was ready to hear from Shukadeva Goswami whatever instructions he is giving. And he is a very sincere student, also posing right questions to understand what he has to do. Okay. Text 15. Antakale tu purusha agate gatasad vasaha chindyad asanga shastrena spriham dehenu yechatam. At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. So this is an interesting point. He says that you have to cut off your attachment. You remember in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, for controlling the mind, he gives a very specific instruction. For controlling the mind, he says that asamshayam mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena se grihite. He says develop vairagya, he says. That's what is exactly said here. You have to give up your attachment, he says. And we have a very perfect process in Krishna consciousness. We cut off. We don't say, we say that you develop your attachment for Krishna. By developing your attachment for Krishna, by developing higher taste, naturally we will develop all the other lower tastes. So this is the Krishna conscious methodology. Do not be afraid of death. Prepare for the next body, spiritual body. So this is an important thing we need to know. We need to prepare. Our current life is the preparation for our entry into our next life. This knowledge, any student of Bhagavad Gita will know. Anybody, he says that, if someone says, sir, I have read the Bhagavad Gita, so life is for what? This human life is a very rare chance I have got. I have to use this human form of life in a proper way so that ante narayana smriti. This happens. You read the Bhagavad Gita and you do not know yam vapi smaran bhavam shlokam. You don't have to know the shloka, but you have to know that, hey, you know what? There's a time you're going to leave the body. At the time of leaving the body, whatever is your consciousness, based on that consciousness, you're going to get another body. So better watch out what you're doing in your life. This much knowledge we should have. If you do not have, then you're going to be unnecessarily attached to this body, the expansions of this body, the country, pumsastriyo mitani bhava metat tayor hridaya granthi mahu. This is what is going to happen. Attraction to the opposite sex. Then there is a heavy knot that happens, and as a atagriha kshetra sutapta vrittai janasya mohoyam ahammameti. This is what will happen. You'll be attracted by the children, you'll be attracted by the house, you'll be attracted by the society, you'll be attracted by wealth, you'll be attracted by so many different kinds of relationships, then ahang mameti, I, me, mine will be floating in this consciousness instead of developing full consciousness, which is Krishna consciousness. Right? So Prabhupada points out in the purport, great statesmen, scientists, philosophers, etc., who are foolish without any information of the spirit soul, think that this life of a few years only is all in all, and that there is nothing more after death. This is the poor fund of knowledge, even in the so-called learned circles of the world, is killing the vitality of human energy, and the awful result is being keenly felt. And yet the foolish materialistic men do not care about what is going to happen in the next life. This philosophy is there right from time immemorial, isn't it? What is the philosophy? Gritam krutva gritam prabhed yavat jivet sukam jivet bhasmi bhutasya dehasya king punaragamano bhavet. This is what Charvaka says. And there are, Charvaka is suggesting, somehow or other, beg, borrow, steal, eat in ghee. Same philosophy is followed now. Somehow or other, beg, borrow, steal, eat whatever nonsense you want to eat. There was some culture at the time saying that eat preparations from now, anything you eat, whatever, it just doesn't matter. So that's what, nobody's interested. What's going to happen to you? What's going to be your next life? Have you seen? Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya. After death, have you seen anybody who, after death, have you seen them? Have you seen God? How do you say that there is next life? So this is the problem with so-called intellectual people. They lose the common sense there. They can't see that the soul which is engaged in the body of a child is actually transferring himself to a body of youth, then from youth to old age. So obviously the body is changing all the time. Now, will the body not change at the time of death? This common sense, Prabhupada, many times he poses this question. So by common sense, we can see that every second we are changing our body. So at the time of death, we are going to change your body. And anybody who is a little inquisitive will obviously be interested to know what will be my next body. Rather we'll be careful to know I'm going to have next life. What is going to be my destination? We are so much interested in accumulating so much wealth, bank balance, this insurance, that insurance. What about your life is not, you are not worried about your life insurance. Real life insurance is to safely insure our life in the lotus feet of Krishna so that we don't have to suffer in our next life. Isn't it? This is intelligence. Okay. Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here, an intelligent person must be prepared for this and must try to have the best type of body in the next life. The best type of body is a spiritual body which is obtained by those who go back to the kingdom of God or enter the realm of Brahman, which is the spiritual world, entering into Vaikuntha. After death, one forgets everything about the present bodily relations. We have a little experience of this at night. When we go to sleep, while sleeping, we forget everything about this body and bodily relations. Although this forgetfulness is a temporary situation for only a few hours. Death is nothing but sleeping for a few months in order to develop another term of bodily engagement, which we are awarded by the law of nature according to our aspiration. So here's the definition of death being spoken here, isn't it? Foolish materialists in the garb of leaders of the people in general stick to family affairs without attempting to cut off relations with them, and thus they become victims of nature's love and get gross bodies again, according to their work. Such foolish leaders may have some respect from the people at the end of life, but that does not mean such leaders will be immune to the natural laws by which everyone is tightly bound by the hands and feet. This is the point. Foolish materialists, they are just expanding their relations, their so-called stay in this material world by expanding the wealth, by expanding the social status, by expanding their business, by expanding their growth in terms of their name, fame and glory in this material world. But we always have to forget, and they always think that without them nothing will function. They think that world will not function without me. All big leaders who have spoken, we have seen, they all died without them. So that's why there's a famous French philosopher, he said that graveyards are full of indispensable men. Know about that? World cannot survive without me, I have to control, I have to take care of this, I have to do this, I have to do that. Sorry sir, time has come, you have to leave the body. And all those big people, you can go and then see in the graveyards, there's a memorial. So-and-so, 1882 to 1965. All the time periods are given. That's all. So this is what Prabhupada is very much emphasizing. This purpose is urging the reader to understand that your life is not, this is not your real life. Current family that you are in, you are due to your karmic situation, you have been into a particular body, you have been into a particular relationship. Yes, do your dharma, do your things, but this is not all in all. So this is the problem, when you don't have any kind of spiritual knowledge, we think this to be all in all, we think this to be reality, and we take dream to be reality and reality to be dream. So Srila Narottama Das Thakur in his song very nicely puts it, Asatyere Satya Kaurimani. So we take Asatya to be Satya and Satya to be Asatya. So in this verse, mainly the point is that it is being suggested that you have to engage in connecting yourself with the Supreme Lord, which is yoga. Okay. Now, from verses 16 to 39, you would say the yoga processes as recommended by other sages in the assembly. Specifically, the next 5 verses deals with how to prepare for a better next life. Okay. Verses 16 to 21, it's going to discuss about that. Now, you have to understand, we will also deal with this when the upcoming verses come up. Why so many varieties of yoga, whereas other processes are recommended here by Shukadeva Goswami? Any guess?
Because so many sages here assemble in the assembly.
Prabhupada mentions this in one purport, isn't it? Prabhupada says that there are so many sages who are assembled who had come up with different suggestions to Parikshit Maharaj. And also to Parikshit Maharaj also, he is asking some questions. He himself is a pure devotee of the Lord. He has no interest in any Mishra Bhakti. So, but to accommodate the different desires of different sages and some other people who may be interested in other processes, Parikshit Maharaj also is posing questions. Okay. Now, from verses 16, we can see here a kind of Ashtanga yoga is suggested. Okay, we will watch here. So we will, what are the different steps in the Ashtanga yoga? Limbs of the Ashtanga yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara. Correct. Pranayama, Pratyahara, then Dharana, then Dhyana, then Samadhi. Okay. Now in these verses we can see all those things are covered. Okay. Please observe. One should leave home and practice self-control in a sacred place. He should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place duly sanctified. So what are all the things covered here? One should leave home and practice self-control. In a sacred place, he should bathe regularly. So bathing regularly is, here we can see Yama and Niyama. So he says, don't stay at home, go to a sacred place. Go and sit in a sacred place. Okay, Yama and Niyama. Niyama is bathe regularly. That's being said. And asana is also there. You'll go and sit in that place. So all these 3 things are covered here. Correct? Yeah, he says no. And sit down in a lonely place duly sanctified.
Another show about breathing process.
Yeah, that's right. We are just, what we are speaking now is Yama, Niyama and Asana. Step by step. Don't jump to sit properly. Then you can go start breathing. Correct. Otherwise breathing will be a little difficult, because if you don't sit properly, there will be you will snore properly. Okay. Now next point. So Prabhupada is speaking in the purport. Modern civilization is based on family comforts, the highest standard of amenities, and therefore after retirement, everyone expects to live a very comfortable life in a well-furnished home, decorated with fine ladies and children, without any desire to get out of such a comfortable home. High government officers and ministers stick to their prized posts until death. Prabhupada is making a mockery here. And they neither dream nor desire to get out of homely comforts. Bound by such hallucinations, materialistic men prepare various plans for a still more comfortable life. But suddenly cruel death comes without mercy and takes away the great plan maker against his desire, forcing him to give up the present body for another body. Remember that once Prabhupada was speaking about from his life experience. He was pointing out to one person who came to a doctor. Prabhupada was in the medical field, right? He was in the pharmaceutical business. So he saw one big fellow coming to a doctor, and then he's asking him, oh, sir, can you extend 4 years of my life? He said, sorry, not possible. It's not in my hands. Doctor says it's not possible. Oh, just give me 4 years. I have to accomplish something. I have to finish something. Not possible. Okay. In order to be saved from the danger of spoiling the human form of life and being attached to unreal things, one must take warning of death at the age of 50, if not earlier. Panchavarsham manam vrajet. The principle is that one should take it for granted that the death warning is already there, even prior to the attainment of 50 years of age. And thus, at any stage of life, one should prepare himself for a better next life. The system of Sanatana Dharma institution is so made that the follower is trained for the better next life without any chance that the human life will be spoiled. Now Prabhupada is further speaking the purport. That's why the holy place, a very intelligent person should go to the holy place, Prabhupada says. Now Prabhupada is giving a warning in this purport. One should not, however, become self-complacent simply by leaving home or by creating another home at the holy place, either lawfully or unlawfully. Many persons leave home and go to such holy places, but due to bad association again, become family men by illicit connection with the opposite sex. It's a common thing that we recently also heard in a seminar given by His Holiness Bhakti-vaibhava Swami, that on speaking of the Vishnu Sahasranama series of lectures on Tirthaka. So he said that there is one common problem is that sometimes in big holy place we can see that there are also prostitutes who are there. He says so. Some people just go for prostitutes. So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. Srila Prabhupada is saying, what's the point having gone to this holy place and there also you want to be engaged in sex? Sex indulgence is considered suicidal or even worse. So the whole process is to drag the mind from material engagements and fix it on the lotus feet of the Lord. This simple process alone will help one advance to the highest stage of spiritual success. So Prabhupada points out here, Srila Shukadeva Goswami is pointing out, okay, take bath daily, you sit in a sacred place. So he has suggested that. Don't stay at home. That was another specific instruction given. Leave the house. Okay. Now, text 17. Text 17 speaks about, after sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the three transcendental letters. So we have seen Yama, Niyama, Asana. Now comes Pranayama. After sitting in the above manner, make the mind remember the three transcendental letters Om. And by regulating the breathing process, control the mind so as not to forget the transcendental seed. So here a kind of indirect process is mentioned, right? Indirect Omkara or direct holy name to control the mind. Prabhupada immediately in the purport he points out that Omkara or the Pranava is the seed of transcendental realization, and it is composed of the three transcendental letters Om. Chanting it within the mind in conjunction with the breathing process is a transcendental mechanical way of getting into trance devised by great experienced mystics. So Prabhupada establishes how mind is the central part of all the sense organs, because based on the mind's command, all the organs work. So now Prabhupada is pointing out, Omkara is the seed of all transcendental sound, and it is only the transcendental sound which can bring about the desired change of the mind and the senses. Even a mentally deranged man can be cured by treatment of transcendental sound. Now this we have heard that, right? You remember when somebody is suffering from amnesia. So they are allowed to hear those sounds which they had heard before he got his disease. So voice of the wife, voice of his son, voice of his relatives, or voice of some specific thing he was doing. So that sound, gradually hearing the same sound again and again. One day he gets to know, oh, he's my actual son, he's my actual wife, So similarly, Prabhupada gives an example to state the point that why we are chanting Hare Krishna. So then one day our real awakening will happen. Real awakening, we will come to our full consciousness, understanding that, oh, everything is a dream, Krishna is reality. And we will come to know about it. Okay. So Prabhupada is further speaking in the purport. Omkara is a note of address, such as, oh my Lord, just as Om Hari. Om means, oh my Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then Prabhupada is pointing out that this process, what is being suggested here is the mechanical process suggested for the neophytes. Prabhupada is speaking about it. As we have several times expressed, since the transcendental name, form, attributes, pastime, etc. of the personality of Godhead are impossible to understand with the present material senses, it is necessary that through the mind, the center of sensual activities, such transcendental realization be set into motion. So Prabhupada, although in this particular section, particular place, Shukadeva Goswami is suggesting about the Ashtanga Yoga process, Srila Prabhupada, you can see in his purports, Wherever such kind of things are there, Prabhupada will give one conclusion. He will bring the point of bhakti. Okay, it's all there, but actually, it's better. The best process is you have to absorb yourself in the transcendental name, fame, form, glories of the Lord. Right? Nama Rupa Guna Leela. You have to get absorbed in that. That's what Prabhupada is hinting here. Okay. Okay, same thing is being spoken by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. We'll go to the next verse. Text 18. Gradually, as the mind becomes progressively spiritualized, withdraw it from sense activities, and by intelligence, the senses will be controlled. What is this?
Dhyana.
It's not dhyana.
Samadhi.
You are rushing again. Yeah. Whenever it comes, that senses have to be withdrawn from the sense objects. That refers to pratyahara. The mind, too absorbed in material activities, can be engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead and become fixed in full transcendental consciousness. Okay, this is a problem, Without, if we do not take our mind away from the sense objects, then we may immediately get into samadhi. But our samadhi is not the actual samadhi. We sleep. Okay, so this is the problem. So that's why the step-by-step process is there. So pratyahara is required. So yeah. Although we don't stress in our practice of Krishna consciousness, now I'm doing pratyahara. Our process is so transcendental that by our absorption is completely in hearing the holy name of the Lord. We absorb ourselves in chanting Krishna's name. We absorb ourselves in hearing during the kirtan. So this process of yogas are included in that. Okay, we don't do all these things. Obviously, we are also when our mind goes here and there, we just bring the mind back to hear the holy name. Correct. If you just think about it, you just allow your mind to think of some sense object or some sense gratificatory thing. We are lost. We don't hear the voice of Paramatma. We hear the voice of Maya, right? And we think that will be perfect. Okay. So this is an important thing to be learned. So he says, engage the mind in the service of the Lord. So Prabhupada gives example. Even great rishis, they got lost themselves. He gives example of Vishwamitra and Prabhupada says, Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, also recommends this direct process in the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, the mind being spiritually cleansed, one should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord by the different devotional activities of hearing, chanting, etc. If performed under proper guidance, that is the surest path of progress, even for the disturbed mind. Right? So, although here this pratyahara is mentioned that we voluntarily withdrawing our senses from sensual activities. We have to voluntarily withdraw. But what is it that how we are as a practitioners of bhakti, how it is being done? As practitioners of bhakti, how do we withdraw? That's the point. This is the point Prabhupada is pointing out here. Engage your senses in the service of the Lord, which could be Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanuvarani. This is what Ambarish Maharaj is suggesting. So we have a positive process. We have a perfect positive process. By that perfect positive process, all the negations are happened. Right? And the process is more simple also. That it's easy to meditate on the form of the Lord. It's easy to hear the name of the Lord rather than meditating on something impersonal, which is difficult, very difficult. Correct? That we will be seeing in the upcoming purports. I missed to read one line. I will read that line. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is speaking about it. Same thing Prabhupada is addressing in the purport. The mind, although here you go. The mind, although ceasing to think of sensual activities at present, remembers past sensual activities from the subconscious status and thus disturbs one from cent% engagement in self-realization. This is the problem for us. I will again repeat this line. The mind, although ceasing to think of sensual activities at present, remembers past sensual activities from the subconscious status and thus disturbs one from cent% engagement in self-realization. This is our great problem. Esham tu antagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. Unless we are purified, we cannot be peaceful. That is why we are struggling. So, but the process of Krishna consciousness, chanting of the holy name is so powerful. That is why you can see Krishna also when he is giving instructions to Stitadhir Muni, Sita pragyasya ka bhasha. In this, for the first thing he says, very first thing Krishna is giving advice to Arjuna. What do you say? Students of the Bhagavad Gita, please answer. First advice he is giving, Krishna is giving to the question raised by Arjuna. What he says? Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atman nevatmana tushta sita pragnas tadochachu. So he says, immediately take the mind or the senses away from the sense objects. Any thought comes, immediately don't dwell on it. At that time only kick it out. So practically how do we do? So some thought comes to us, some sensual thoughts come to us. Now you are chanting Hare Krishna, okay? Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Some you think about some film song, and then Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Immediately chant Krishna's name, depend on Krishna. Chant his name loudly, that thought will be kicked out. This is how we take shelter of Krishna. Okay? Now the moment you just a little bit allow it, okay? Maya is also very powerful, it's a fight. When we allow a little bit for the mind to take over us, then it's also, we are kind of committing offense. You know, we are thinking, okay, now a little bit I'll hear, a little bit I'll try to negotiate with the mind and see what he is proposing. Then, anyway, if any problem is, anyway I have holy name, no? I can chant holy name. But our endeavor, our sincerity is shown to the Supreme Lord by our enthusiasm to fight against. Because the Lord has said, don't dwell on it. Don't dwell on it. Don't even allow a little bit of it. Kick it out at the beginning. And if we practice like this endeavor should be there. This shows our enthusiasm towards serving the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And Krishna is not going to watch from inside and say, hey, I will see how this fellow is going to fall down. No, he's a person. Krishna is a person. Krishna is our eternal Father. Krishna is ready to help us in any situation. He's ready to help us, provided we show our tremendous enthusiasm to take shelter of him. We have to show, because we voluntarily left him, isn't it? Krishna never said us to leave him. In fact, Krishna said, hey, come on, everything is yours. You can be here, serve me. But we pushed ourselves. No, my dear Lord, I want to be independent. I want to say, okay, then Lord allowed. Now we have to show that sincerity to the Lord. That Krishna, I'm so foolish. I really want your shelter. I'm struggling, I have a great problem. Please help me. I want to take shelter of you. My mind is just going here and there. Although I say so many things, I am trying, and then my mind still tricks me. You have to give me shelter. So like that, we have to really show our sincerity. A child may try to walk, it will fall down. Again, it tries to walk. So that sincerity has to be shown by us. So I am just waiting for the mercy of the Lord. Okay, Lord has given mercies, you rascal. He has given all the mercy. He has given you. He has sent the spiritual master. Spiritual master has told you what should be done, what should not be done. Then what are you doing? What are we doing about it? We have to endeavor. We have to do something in our life. Just try to stick, and we try our best. At least at the end of the day, we can say, okay, I tried my best. I prayed to the Lord. We may still, but Lord is not a stereotyped stumbling block, He's a person. Krishna is a person. He reciprocates. That faith we should have. That's the anga of Sharanagati, right? We should have that faith. That Krishna is my protector. He will protect. I'm a worst of the sinners, but I have only one hope. Krishna is Gopinath. He will not leave me. He will give me shelter. That hope we should have. I am such a fallen and rascal, bro. Krishna will not even consider me, bro. That's another escape, engage in sense gratification. What kind of a devotee you are? You understand? That's why I am just discussing on this point. Because the purvika samskaras, our past samskaras will pull us. We have this powerful Krishna consciousness. Bhakti is so powerful. We cannot even imagine the kind of anarthas that we have. It can completely ruin us totally. But still, Krishna is so powerful. He can just, ocean of faults, ocean of misgivings, everything Krishna can, within a fraction of a second, he can just burn it. And that's how the Lord is merciful. Are you getting the point? So that's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. There is also one more thing that is being said. He says that withdraw your senses from sense gratification. And then he also says the mind to be engaged in the service of the Lord. So that is when fixing the mind. So Pratyahara is discussed, then Dharana is also discussed there. Now comes Dhyana. Okay. Thereafter, you should meditate upon the limbs of Vishnu, one after another, without being deviated from the conception of the complete body. Thus, the mind becomes free from all sense objects. There should be no other thing to be thought upon, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, is the ultimate truth. Okay, the mind becomes completely reconciled in Him only. So that is what completely reconciled in Him only means. That is dhyana. Okay, samadhi. Sorry, that's so dhyana is meditation for a longer period of time. Then the longer period of meditation ends up in what? In samadhi. Okay. So Prabhupada says, therefore, thinking of Vishnu or meditating upon the transcendental form of Vishnu, specifically upon Lord Krishna, is the last word on the subject of meditation. This meditation may be begun from the lotus feet of the Lord. One should not, however, forget or be misled from the complete form of the Lord. Thus, one should practice thinking of the different parts of the transcendental body one after another. Here in this verse, it is definitely assured that the Supreme Lord is not impersonal. He is a person, but his body is different from the bodies of conditioned persons like us. Otherwise, meditation beginning from the pranava up to the limbs of the personal body of Vishnu would not have been recommended by Shukadeva Goswami for the attainment of complete spiritual perfection. Now, Prabhupada further he discusses in this purport about the Vishnu form, which is the ultimate goal of meditation. So he just discusses about deity worship and idol worship, how some particular institutions, they say that this deity worship is not proper, it's not bogus, it is bogus. So these kind of ideas they give. Then Prabhupada establishes it in his purport. The worshipable deity in the temple of Vishnu is identical with Lord Vishnu by the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Therefore, a neophyte's concentration or meditation upon the limbs of Vishnu in the temple, as contemplated in the revealed scriptures, is an easy opportunity for meditation for persons who are unable to sit down tightly at one place and then concentrate upon pranava, Omkara, or the limbs of the body of Vishnu, as recommended herein by Shukadeva Goswami. So Prabhupada gives another alternative. Go to the temple, look at the beautiful form of the Lord, right from the lotus feet up to the face. Just look at that form and then get yourself absorbed. Okay. There is no difference between Omkara and the forms of Vishnu, but persons unacquainted with the signs of the absolute truth try to create dissension by differentiating between them. Here it is indicated that the Vishnu form is the ultimate goal of meditation, and as such it is better to concentrate upon the forms of Vishnu than on impersonal Omkara. The later process is also more difficult than the former. Okay, so here we had a discussion on dhyana and samadhi in this verse. Now let's go to text 20. Now, after having said that like this you can do meditation and you can elevate yourself. Having said that, now Shukadeva Goswami is dealing with another problem that any practicing yogi may face. He says, Rajastamobhyam akshiptang vimudhang mana atmanah yached dharanaya dhiro hantiya tatkritang malam. One's mind is always agitated by the passionate mode of material nature and bewildered by the ignorant mode of nature. But one can rectify such conceptions by the relation of Vishnu and thus become pacified by cleansing the dirty things created by them. Correct? So, tatkritang hantiya tatkritang malam. How? Yache dharanaya dhiro. So, a person, by fixing his mind on the form of the Lord, he can remove all the dirty things from his heart. So, that is what is being suggested here. Now, Prabhupada, what he says, let's see. Pantheism, realization of the Lord in everything. Conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. Srila Prabhupada says, and those who are too much after wealth and women can rectify their leanings only by constant remembrance of Vishnu in his material potency, his impersonal features. Generally, the impersonalists or monis are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Such impersonalists think of themselves as liberated souls, but they have no knowledge of the transcendental personal feature of the absolute truth. Actually, they are impure in heart on account of being devoid of knowledge of the personal feature of the absolute. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that after many hundreds of births, the impersonal philosopher surrenders unto the personality of Godhead. To acquire such a qualification of God realization in the personal feature, the neophyte impersonalist is given a chance to realize the revelation of the Lord in everything by the philosophy of pantheism. So here Prabhupada is in the purport, he is suggesting that for those who are not able to fix the mind on the form of Vishnu, so they are suggested to worship the matter, which is actually an emanation from the Lord, seeing the Lord in everything, seeing Lord everywhere. So like that a gross conception is given to the practitioner, because from that conception of worshipping the gross form, gradually, by purification, he will be able to come closer to the actual personal form of the Lord. Okay. Now, you see the purport Prabhupada is pointing out. Pantheism in its higher status does not permit the student to form an impersonal conception of the absolute truth, but it extends the conception of the absolute truth into the field of the so-called material energy. Sometimes you can see some people worshipping in the forest, you can see worshipping a big mountain, and they may be worshipping some huge structures. So in that way they see the whole gross form to be God. They think like that. And that is encouraged. But see, that also some form is being worshipped. So Prabhupada points out that it's not, impersonalism is not recommended here. But there is another, we will discuss that when Prabhupada comes, we will discuss it. I just want to give a hint. The impersonalists, what they think, according to the impersonalists, the absolute has broken down into several chunks, which means the absolute is broken down into the universe, into rivers, into everything. You, me, everyone, absolute is broken down. So they start worshipping, everyone is God for them. So this is another nonsense, we'll deal with that. Okay. Prabhupada points out the pure, whereas how the pure devotee looks at it, he also looks what Krishna says in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati. Then tasyaham pranashyami sachamena pranashyati. Correct? So the Yomam pashyati sarvatra. So he sees the Lord in everything, and what else? Sarvam cha mai pashyati, and everything in the Lord. So he is able to do that. So now how a devotee approaches. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by this service attitude. Because he can dovetail the material energy in the service of the Lord. So there is only one energy, everything is spiritual energy. But that energy, when it is dovetail in our sense gratificated things, it becomes material energy. Right? And now what the devotee, what he does, whatever even material things, everything he can use it, he knows the art of using it in Krishna's service. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. This is what our acharyas are teaching us. Yeah. The pure devotee of the Lord knows the art of converting everything into its spiritual existence by this service attitude. And only in that devotional way can the theory of pantheism be perfected. Okay, text 21. Yasyam sandharyamanayam yogino bhakti lakshanah ashu sampadhyate yoga ashrayam bhadramikshataha. O king, by this system of by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under its direct shelter. So first he was speaking about the form of the Lord, right? But by meditating, by absorbing ourselves in that form, then soon we will be able to be engaged in devotional service. We will get the direct shelter. So now it's a Prabhupada what he speaks about. So what he is speaking, even that pantheism, that worshipping the universe as God or whatever, gradually worshipping on some gross form, and then some by having some service attitude, gradually he will rise to what level?
Devotional.
Yeah, you will understand the devotional concept and you will gradually come close to the practice of personalism. You getting the point? That's what Prabhupada is pointing out here. One is not, however, elevated to such a successful status without mixing in a tinge of devotional service. So one has to have some love for the Lord. The devotion has to be engaged, otherwise there will be no purification. The devotional atmosphere created by pantheistic vision develops into devotional service in later days, and that is the only benefit for the impersonalist. In that dharana, yoga, which has qualities of bhakti mishra yoga, in which the person has desire for liberation, but not without some bhakti, is accomplished for the yogi who sees the Lord by dharana. So when one gradually meditates on the form of that Lord, and then slowly then he rises, and that rising will not happen without what? So now you have read so much of Bhakti Shastras, you have studied. Okay, how the transformation will happen for any aspiring yogi, how the transformation will happen from being a yogi to become a devotee. How the transformation will happen?
By the mercy of a pure devotee.
That is the whole point. That's the whole point. By the mercy of a pure devotee, somehow or other coming in association with him, one will gradually develop the taste. So this is the whole secret. Otherwise, not possible. What Prahlad Maharaj says? Mahatpada Rajobhishekam. Vinang Mahatpada Rajobhishekam. So that verse is there. Then also what Bharat, Jadabharat, what he says? He also says. That was the last line. Vinat Mahatpada Rajobhishekam. What Prahlad says? Nishkinchananam Bhagavat Bhajanon Mukasya. That's a different one. I'm speaking about Prahlad Maharaj. What Prahlad Maharaj? Prahlad Maharaj is Tavadurukram Angrim Mahiyasam Pada Rajobhishekam. So he also says, so this is the whole secret. Our whole Krishna conscious philosophy, understanding is there. The whole connection happens through the relationship by the mercy of the pure devotee. That's being informed. Okay. Yeah, that is also there. Mahatsevam. Rishabhadev also is saying Mahatsevam Dwaram Vimuktas. That is also there. That's also there. But here we are very much speaking about the dust from the lotus feet of the Lord. So that shows the significance of how powerful is a pure devotee of the Lord who can transcend, who can help anyone to transcend the material coverings. Okay. So now we are moving to the section of the Bhagavatam, this first chapter, where Shukadeva Goswami is going to point out how by taking the form of worship of the Virat Roop, one will be able to make progress. And this is recommended for whom, that also we will see. Okay. We will again remind ourselves of the process what Shukadeva Goswami has recommended. So far we saw Shukadeva Goswami suggesting the practitioner to meditate on the form of the Lord. So the Ashtanga Yoga process is explained. And now for those who are not able to take up that process, now from now on is going to suggest about the meditation on the Virat Rupa. That will help the purification of the mind. There will be some questions posed by Parikshit Maharaj also. And let's see how Shukadeva Goswami is dealing with that. Okay. Text 22. So now this forms the question in this chapter. Probably the first question in the second canto. Rajo vacha yata sandaryate brahman dharana yatra sammata yadrishi vahared ashu purushasya manomalam. The fortunate king Parikshit, inquiring further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied, how the conception can be fixed, so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. So three parts are there in this question. First one, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied. One. Second, how the conception can be fixed. Dharana yatra sammata. Then, purushasya manomalam. And can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their fate. It's an important point. Why Parikshit Maharaj? Parikshit Maharaj asked this question for what purpose? See, keeping in mind other practitioners. That's one thing. And second thing also, who is going for this Virat Roop? Now Prabhupada is nicely explaining it in the purport. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the Absolute are given a chance to associate with this Virat Rupa, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and potencies are identical, even the conception of his impersonal cosmic feature helps the conditioned soul to associate with the Lord indirectly, and thus gradually rise to the stage of personal contact. So now, this we discussed already. Why Parikshit inquired about the impersonal Virat Rupa of the Lord? But he inquired after a detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others who are unable to conceive of the transcendental personal feature of the Lord. as the form of eternity, knowledge and bliss. The non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord. Because of their poor fund of knowledge, the personal form of the Lord, like Rama or Krishna, is completely revolting to them. They have a poor estimation of the potency of the Lord. So this reason, Prabhupada points out, this is also in Srila Jiva Goswami in his commentary also is pointing out the same reason. Prabhupada, following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, is very clearly explaining why Parikshit is asking about this. Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee of the Lord, isn't it? Why you should ask about impersonal conception? So that's the point, for the benefit of the others. So for the benefit of men who are unable to accept the Lord in his personal eternal form, Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami how to fix the mind on him in the beginning, and the Goswami replied in detail as follows. Shri Shuka uvacha jitasano jitaswaso jitasango jitendriya stule bhagavato rupe manassandarayeddiya. Shukadeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing processes by the yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and senses, and with intelligence apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord, called the Virat Rupa. So cleanse the materially absorbed mind. So we have to do the cleansing process, and the step-by-step process is given by following all the steps in the Ashtanga Yoga. Now there is a suggestion that is given. Okay, if you cannot meditate on the form of the Lord, then meditate on the gross form of the Lord. That is the Virat Rupa. The materialistic men are very anxious to have some mystic powers as a result of such a controlling process, but the real purpose of yogic regulations is to eradicate the accumulated dirty things like lust, anger, avarice, and all such material contaminations. If the mystic yogi is diverted by the accompanying feats of mystic control, then his mission of yogic success is a failure, because the ultimate aim is God realization. Okay. Now, as soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of the transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step. So now this is a trick here. So when Prabhupada is pointing out, did you look at that statement, what Prabhupada said? As soon as the potencies are understood to be instrumental manifestations of the transcendence, one automatically advances to the next step. So now what's the point? You are looking at various potencies of the Lord, and you are thinking that to be supreme. And then gradually from potency, you try to understand about the potent. Correct? So that's what here Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. So gradually the stage of full realization becomes possible for him. Now there is a note that is given by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary. He says that for those yogis who cannot concentrate on the spiritual form of the Paramatma, mentioned in verse 21, right? We saw, right? So he's saying that you meditate on the form of the Lord. Okay, just to remind you, let's go back to text 21. Or can someone read text 21? Read text 21 and translation loudly.
O King, by this system of remembrance and by being fixed in the habit of seeing the all good personal conception of the Lord, one can very soon attain devotional service to the Lord under his direction.
Sanskrit.
Yasyaham sandhyare yamanayama yogino bhakti lakshana.
Yeah. Yasyam sandarayamana yogino bhakti lakshana. Correct? So that's what he is explaining. So that was the worship of the Paramatma. Now for those who cannot do that, here the Virat Rup manifestation is explained here. Text 24. Visheshas tasya deho yang stavishtascha staviyasam yatredang vyajyate vishwang bhutang bhavyang bhavachasat. This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is a personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present and future of material time is experienced. So Prabhupada points out in his purport that Virat Rupa is for less intelligent men, a favor by the Lord to the atheists. Okay. Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 text 14. Sarvato panipadam tat sarvato akshi shiromukam sarvato shrutimal loke sarvam avritya tishtati. Correct? Tishtati. Yeah. The omnipotent Lord has his transcendental eyes, heads, and other bodily parts distributed everywhere. He can see, touch, or manifest himself anywhere and everywhere. For he is present everywhere as the super soul of all infinitesimal souls, although he has his particular abode in the absolute world. So Prabhupada says, the phenomenal manifestation of the gigantic universe is only a part of his body. Phenomenal manifestation, you understand? One is nominal, another one is phenomenal. Nominal is real, phenomenal is it's material, it's imaginary also, you can say. Just as the aborigines are struck with wonder by the manifestation of lightning, a gigantic mountain, or a hugely expanded banyan tree, the aborigines praise the strength of the tiger and the elephant because of their superior energy and strength. The asuras cannot recognize the existence of the Lord, although there are vivid descriptions of the Lord in the revealed scriptures. Although the Lord incarnates and exhibits his uncommon strength and energy, and although he is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by learned scholars and saints like Vyasadeva, Narada, Asita and Devala in the past, and by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, as also by the Acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva and Lord Chaitanya in the modern age. So this is the point, as we said, no? So they are, when they see the gigantic forms or the strength of animals or the strength of whatever, what do you call it? Shabdake, Paurusham, Nrishu, then what Krishna says in the Gita, in the 7th chapter also, the Bhalam Bhalavatam Aham Kamaraga Vivarjitam. So like that, in this way, they are able to see. Even if you see in that way, so that's a good beginning. So that will lead you to personal conception. After a period of time, gradually, by purification and by association of devotees, you will come to the personal conception. As such, we don't recommend this. But that's the way also you make progress. They want to see with their own eyes at once. What? The Supreme Lord. Show me. I want to see. Like that's how they challenge. Therefore, they can see the gigantic body of the Lord as Virat, which will answer their challenge. And since they are accustomed to paying homage to superior material strength like that of the tiger, elephant and lightning, they can offer respect to the Virat Rupa. So this is the point Prabhupada is explaining here. The Lord therefore favored Arjuna with special vision for looking into his Virat Rupa, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This Virat Rupa of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna, but for that unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord, and so misled the general mass of people. For them, the indication is that one should ask the cheap incarnation to exhibit his Virat Rupa, and thus be established as an incarnation. The Virat Rupa manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheist and a favor for the asuras, who can think of the Lord as Virat and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their hearts in order to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future. This is a favor of all merciful Lord to the atheists and the gross materialists. Okay. Now, one example Prabhupada gives you. Remember one time in one conversation, Prabhupada is making fun. He said that, why don't we worship the Virat form of the Lord, First of all, who can worship the Virat form of the Lord? Where do you have to dress the Virat form? you in all the textile shops in this world, whatever cloth they have manufactured will not be sufficient. And then, second, it's so huge, who can worship? And how can we even feed him? Whatever ingredients you have in this world, whatever cooking, that will also not be sufficient. So the Lord is so merciful, he appears in the Archa Vigraha form. He appears in such a way that we can lift him, we can bathe him, we can dress him, we can feed him. And, so that's the point. Okay. So now somebody may question, where does he reside? Who is he? How do the Virat Rupa? How to understand? Text 25. Andakoshe shariresmin sapta varana sangyute vairajat purusho yosau bhagavan dharana shrayah. You see, he was asking, how is the dharana accomplished? In the text 22, 3 questions, how to accomplish this meditation. So that answer is there here in this verse, right there in this verse. And also he's asking, what's the second question he's asking? How to accomplish the dharana and what is the process of this dharana? How to take shelter of this Virat Rupa. That also will be answered in this question. Bhagavan Dharanashrayaha, he says. Okay. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by sevenfold material elements, is the subject for the Virat conception. Universal form is to convince those who don't accept the personal form. Prabhupada very simply puts it in one of the lines here. Okay, in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, manifested his Virat Roop just to convince the less intelligent class of men who cannot conceive of the Lord as appearing just like a human being. But that he factually has the potency of his claim to be the supreme person without any rival or superior. Materialistic men can think, although very imperfectly, of the huge universal space comprehending innumerable planets as big as the sun. They can see only the circular sky overhead without any information that this universe, as well as many other hundreds of thousands of universes, are each covered by sevenfold material coverings of water, fire, air, sky, ego, noumenon, and material nature, just like a huge football, pumped and covered, floating on the water of the causal ocean, wherein the Lord is lying as the Mahavishnu. So Prabhupada explains the point that it is very difficult to for the normal person to see, because above the head he sees only the sky, but the entire Virat form, the whole one universe is representing Virat form. That's what Prabhupada is explaining here. One can just imagine how ignorant is the poor foolish materialist who simply on the allegations of a dying man puts forward an insignificant creature to become the Lord's rival incarnation. The Virat Rupa was particularly exhibited by the Lord just to give lessons to such foolish men, so that they can accept a person as an incarnation of Godhead only if the person is able to exhibit such a Virat Rupa, as Lord Krishna did. The materialistic person may concentrate his mind upon the Virat or gigantic form of the Lord in his own interest and as recommended by Shukadeva Goswami. But he must be on his guard not to be misled by pretenders who claim to be Lord Krishna but are not able to act like him or exhibit the Virat Rupa. So now we will see series of verses which will give step by step delineations of the Virat form. Okay, what is Lord's feet, what is Lord's shank, what is Lord's knee, what is Lord's thigh, what is Lord's hip, what is Lord's... Gradually we will see the comparison. So I will just be going through some of the translations so that we will catch up with some important purpose. Okay. Text 26. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and the shanks constitute the Talatala planets. Shanks, you understand, right? The portion between knee and the ankle. This portion is called the shank. And you can often see in the football sports players, this is a common used term. Okay. Virat Rupa and service attitude. Okay. Prabhupada speaks about an important point here. The conception of the universal form of the Lord gives a chance to the materialist to think of the Supreme Lord. But the materialist must know for certain that his visualization of the world in a spirit of lording over it is not God realization. Are you getting the point here? What Prabhupada is saying? You visualize the Virat Rupa, but if you are in the mood of lording over, then that is not proper God realization. He says. The materialistic view of exploitation of the material resources is occasioned by the illusion of the external energy of the Lord. And as such, if anyone wants to realize the supreme truth by conceiving of the universal form of the Lord, he must cultivate the service attitude. You see, this is a key point here. What is the key point from this conception to going to the personal conception? That service attitude has to be inculcated. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. I will again read this. This is again a key point in this section. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. Okay. So Prabhupada concludes the purport. He says, in this verse the description begins from the bottom because it is in the line of devotion that the Lord's bodily description should begin from his feet. Shukadeva Goswami is a recognized devotee of the Lord and he is exactly correct in the description. Nice point. Devotional point. Prabhupada is touching. Okay. Text 27. The knees of the universal form or the planetary system of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary system. The hips are Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of his navel. Okay. The chest of the text, can you tell me what's the text number?
27.
Text 27.
28.
28. Help me out. The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Mahar planets. His mouth is the Janas planets. And his forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as the Satyaloka, is the head of him who has 1,000 heads. Text 29. His arms are the demigods headed by Indra. The 10 directional sides and the 10 directional sides are his ears, and physical sound is his sense of hearing. His nostrils are the 2 Ashwini Kumaras, and material fragrance is his sense of smell. His mouth is a blazing fire. So now we can see with these 2 verses, Prabhupada is pointing out that all the demigods are within the body of the Lord. That's the point here mentioned here. Prabhupada nicely is making a point. I will read that. It's interesting. The description in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, text 30, runs as follows. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people from all sides with your flaming mouths, covering all the universe with your effulgence. You are manifest with terrible scorching rays. In that way, Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study for the student of the Bhagavad Gita. Both of them are the signs of Krishna, the absolute truth, and so they are interdependent. So many times we see, Bhagavatam is the Srimad Bhagavatam is the direct commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. Sometimes we see the Vedanta Sutras are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Okay. Similarly, we see here Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study on the Gita. So we see Gita is inseparable from the Bhagavatam also. There you can see so many verses which will have connection with Bhagavatam. Okay, Prabhupada says, consequently, for a materialist also, the worship of the universal gigantic form of the Lord leads him to the right path. One need not risk being misled by approaching many demigods for fulfillment of different desires. The real entity is the Lord himself, and all others are imaginary, for everything is included in him only. So if through this also we can understand that all the demigods are situated in the body of the Lord, so no need to do separate worship of the demigods. Just worship the Lord, Supreme Lord, then demigods are naturally satisfied. Yasmin tushte, jagat tushte. Okay. Text 30. The sphere of outer space constitutes his eyeballs, and the sun is his power of seeing. His eyelids are both the day and night, and in the movements of his eyebrows, Brahma and similar supreme personalities reside. His palate is Varuna, the director of water, and the juice or essence of everything is his tongue. Okay, now this purport I would like to read, because with this purport an important philosophical concept is explained by Srila Prabhupada with respect to approaching the Shastras. So we will in the scriptures time and again see several explanations about the planets, about the evolution, about the various planetary systems, about the lifespan of the demigods, about rebirth. So many things we will see. Sometimes certain things will be completely, please listen, then you can write down. So some of these things will be completely out of the general conception with which we approach things in this material world. Or to put it in simple words, many things will be beyond our experience. Okay? Now, sometimes when we try to apply some common sense, and then we will not be able to relate it. Then for example, Lord Shiva, he is sitting under the banyan tree. He is, the banyan tree itself is 800 miles, 800 yojanas long, and so many yojanas width is there. Can't anything be like this? How is this possible? Huh? This is a little bit exaggeration, I feel. You may get like, because it's beyond my common sense perception. And what is this? Ananta is holding all the planetary, all the universe, everything is like a mustard seed on his head. What is this? What? Birds are flying, elephants are flying from one planet to another planet. Birds are flying, carrying elephants, and it hatches eggs while traveling from one planet to another planet. These are descriptions in the Bhagavatam. How? That's why we say this is mythology. Okay, this is how the scientists look at it. Now, Prabhupada is now addressing this whole concept here, how to approach the scriptures. Although the discussion that we are having may not be within the topic, but Prabhupada is using the opportunity here to convey an important philosophical point, which is very much required to for us to make progress in the process of bhakti, because bhakti is not blind faith. The faith is based on a clear conception of what to know, how to know. Right? So that's where the epistemology comes into play, right? So now let's see. Common sense imperfect, Shastras perfect. Proper method to approach Vedas. This is required. Otherwise, people will always be mocking at us. To common sense, the description in this verse appears to be somewhat contradictory, because sometimes the sun is described as the eyeball, and here the outer space sphere is so described. Okay? But there is no room for common sense in the injunctions of the Shastras. Somebody may say, oh, what a dogmatic statement. You understand? Oh, you just simply have to accept it. What is this? But let's see what Prabhupada further says. But there is no room for common sense in the injunctions of the Shastras. We must accept the description of the Shastras and concentrate more on the form of the Virat Rupa than on common sense. Common sense is always imperfect, whereas the description in the Shastras is always perfect and complete. If there is any incongruity, it is due to our imperfection and not the Shastras. That is the method of approaching the Vedic wisdom. It's a big subject matter. I'm not going to dwell more into it, but I'd like to give a simple example by which we will be able to perceive that the statements of the scriptures are bona fide. For example, Prabhupada in the introduction lecture to Ishopanishad, he gives this example. He speaks that cow dung is considered to be pure. But on the other hand, if everybody knows that any stool of any living being is considered impure. But how come? Because the way scriptures it is said, we accept it. But then, Prabhupada doesn't give a fig for the understanding of the scientists. What is the conclusion the scientists have come? But then later he said, even the scientists, you see, they have done some experiments. And they know that Bose, he did, Bose, right? It was Bose, or who was that? Yeah, Bose. He did an experiment, and then he could see that it has got what is that? Antiseptic properties. Cow dung has got antiseptic properties. So like this is a simple example. Then also, so many examples are there, where even in scientists, even in the mathematics, in so many places, they accept some axiomatic, this is called axiomatic statements. They accept certain things. So for certain things, for certain derivations, you accept some statements as it is. For example, for a long period of time, maybe some of you might be aware, you may not be aware, those who studied math, they will know there is something called square root. Okay, so for example, square root of 4 is 2. Now you have 2 squared, 2 times you multiply 2 another time, it's called 2 squared. Now when you take the square root of 4, it is 2. Now for a long period of time in mathematics, people had no clue of imaginary numbers. There is something called I, which is an imaginary number. Okay, which is being used in several mathematical calculations. So I is referred to as a square root of another number. So like this, I'm just giving a glimpse into it. It's a big subject matter to discuss. But as Prabhupada says here, come on, keep your common sense on the side when it comes to the conclusion of the scriptural statements. But in scriptural statements also, we don't just blindly, we totally, we do see some logic in there. And then we try to understand it. But sometimes when your logic goes haywire, or you are not able to put it together through logic, we have to understand, at this point of time, I am not sufficiently purified. At this point of time, these things are not revealed to me. But whatever it is, the scriptures cannot be wrong. Why we come to such conclusion? Why the scriptures cannot be wrong?
Senses are imperfect.
Senses are imperfect. Yeah, it is aporashya. This is even more, another strongly establishing point. That's a subsidiary point. Your senses are imperfect. But it's Aupurashaya because this is not coming from any mundane person. It's coming from the Supreme Lord himself. The Supreme Lord is beyond the 4 defects. So when we have this premise with this understanding, we have no problem in accepting the statements of the scriptures. We don't have to edit it. Or we don't have to say, oh, the material portions of the Vedas, we will ignore it. Spiritual portion will accept it. These are all some nonsense conclusions. We don't have faith in the conclusions of scriptures. Scriptural statements, whatever is the scriptural statements, accept it as it is. That's why Prabhupada was so confident, isn't it? When even before this Neil Armstrong went to the moon, Prabhupada said that we can never go to the moon, because moon is a if you need to go to the moon, you need to have a visa. Like we need to go to a country, we need a visa. To get into the moon, you need to have pious credits. You can't enter the moon. And Prabhupada was damn confident that we cannot enter the moon. So you remember that interview that the reporter was having with Prabhupada. He was kind of posing some tough question to Prabhupada. He was saying that, okay, Swamiji, what about in case if they could go to the moon? That's the time exactly that moon expedition was happening. Neil Armstrong was trying to go to the they were going to the moon. So exactly the time this interview was going on. So he was asking, what about if they reach the moon? What will your disciples think? Prabhupada said, no, they will not be able to reach the moon. And again he's posing the question, no, for example, if they go, what will the faith of your disciples will have on it? No, they'll never be able to go to the moon. And actually what happened there again? They reached the moon planet. In TV they are seeing that they reach the moon planet. Big pictures are there. They are walking on the moon. And Prabhupada said, no, they never went to the moon. Prabhupada just concluded like this. They never went to the moon because you cannot. The Shastras are very clearly saying you don't have sufficiently. You need to be purified to enter into that. It's not just by gross physical, mechanical means you can enter the moon planet. So this faith we need to have in the scriptures. So that's why Prabhupada is using this opportunity here and pointing out in the purport that apparent contradictions at this point of time you will not be able to understand. One time Srila Prabhupada said that you are so insignificant to understand about the vast gigantic universe. Once in one conversation he is speaking to one of his disciples. Some disciples were trying to ask him some smart questions. He said that now you are too young, you do not know. Just accept the conclusions of the scriptures. And when time comes, you will be sufficiently purified, things will be revealed to you. Okay? We don't just blindly, whatever it is, everything we accept. There's also a logic which is presented in the scriptures. Properly we try to hear from authoritative sources and try to understand. Is it clear? Okay. Text 31. They say that the Vedic hymns are the cerebral passage of the Lord, and his jaws of teeth are Yama, god of death, who punishes the sinners. The art of affection is his set of teeth, and the most alluring illusory material energy is his smile. This great ocean of material creation is but the casting of his glance over us. Okay, I am not going to read the purports, I'm just go ahead. Text 32. Modesty is the upper portion of his lips. Hankering is his chin. Religion is the breast of the Lord, and irreligion is his back. Brahmaji, who generates all living beings in the material world, is his genitals, and the Mitra Varunas are his two testicles. The ocean is his waist, and the hills and mountains are the stacks of his bones. So Prabhupada just very clearly pointing out in this purport, is saying that, see, the Supreme Lord is personal, is not impersonal. Supreme Lord is not impersonal, a person complete with all bodily organs. So that's the main point of this particular verse. Prabhupada points out that. I'm going to the next verse. Text 33. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. So here Prabhupada is very nicely pointing out in the purport, he is making a point that Supreme Lord is not a dead stone. He says the personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive as is poorly taught by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. Prabhupada further says in the purport, as it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virata Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of God without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. This is an amazing point, no? Prabhupada says here, So even by studying this, you are immediately you will relate to only the personal conception of the Lord. You will not say that the Lord is impersonal. In fact, this how many religions? We have one religion where according to their faith, they have some conception of God as a person, but they don't have any details about God. How does he look like? What are his likes? What is his place? What are his wishes? They don't have any details about that. Another religion completely rejects any kind of personalism. Another religion says everything is ultimately nothing. There is nothing. And then within the so-called Hindu religion, we have complete impersonal conception. Or you are God, I am God, everyone is God. So that for the details, if you want to know the details about the Lord, you need to enter the subject matter of Vedas, where more details are given. Starting from the impersonal conception, the perfect personal conception of the Lord. More details of the Lord's likes, his dislikes, his abode, his address, his different names, his form, his beauty, his interactions with his devotees, what he eats, how many descriptions, so what more you want. All descriptions are given in the Vedas. So if one is really sober enough, you should be cool-headed and you should try to know the truth properly. To know the truth properly, one should be ready to hear from any scripture. This is proper. This is actually scientific understanding. We should not be biased in trying to be local with some particular faith. So one should explore to know what is the reality, and wherever that truth is offered, take it from there, isn't it? So that's the point. Text 34. O best among the Kurus, the clouds which carry water or the hairs on his head, the terminations of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. Text 35. The principle of matter, Mahat Tattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts, and Rudra Deva is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and all quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. Okay, text 36. Now, some conclusions Shukadeva Goswami speak about. Vayamsi tadvyakaranam vichitram manur manisha manujo nivasaha gandharva vidyadhara charanapsara swarasmritir asuranika viryaha. Varieties of birds are indications of his masterful artistic sense. Manu, the father of mankind, is the emblem of his standard intelligence, and humanity is his residence. The celestial species of human beings, like the Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and angels, all represent his musical rhythm, and the demoniac soldiers are representations of his wonderful prowess. So now, again, Prabhupada, from this particular verse, is explaining the personalism of the Lord. Lord's aesthetic sense. Aesthetic sense means his sense of varieties of, like in aesthetic sense, one should have sense for color, painting, and all these natural abilities. So here Prabhupada is pointing out the aesthetic sense of the Lord is manifested in the artistic, colorful creation of varieties of birds like the peacock, parrot, and the cuckoo. The celestial species of human beings like the Gandharvas and Vidyadharas can sing wonderfully and can entice even the minds of the heavenly demigods. So, whatever is beautiful, and you understand that beautiful to be the Lord himself, correct? Whatever is the best of the abilities, you see that to be the Lord. In fact, that's what we see in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Whatever we see the best, and we see the best to be the Lord. Okay. Their musical rhythm represents the musical sense of the Lord. How then can he be impersonal? Okay. Human society is the residential quarters of the Lord. This means that the human being is meant for God realization and association with God. And here, regarding Asuras, it's being mentioned. Maharaj Prahlad is the right type of representative of the Lord in the family of Asuras. None of the living beings is away from the Lord's gigantic body. Each and every one has a particular duty in relation to the Supreme Body. So now this is the problem. When we just disregard our duty towards the Lord, then the real disruption happens. Then we suffer and struggle in this material world. Prabhupada points out that even the animals could re-establish a relationship with the Lord. But for that to happen, one should be a Mahabhagavata. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could do that. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed this living entity in the jungle of Madhya Pradesh, where even the tigers, elephants, and many other ferocious animals perfectly cooperated in glorifying the Supreme Lord. That is the way to peace and amity all over the world. Okay. Text 37. Brahmanang Shatrabhujo Mahatma Vid Urur Angri Shrita Krishna Varnaha Nana Vidha Bijaganopapanna Dravyatmaka Karma Vitana Yoga. The Virat Purusha's face is the Brahmanas, his arms are the Kshatriyas, his thighs are the Vaishyas, and the Shudras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. So now, what is the main point here being mentioned is, everyone is included within the Virat form of the Lord. So by this, what is the point Prabhupada is trying to establish? Monotheism. One God. God is one and not many. So no need to be engaged in this demigod worship. That's the main point Prabhupada is trying to clarify. And one very interesting point Prabhupada is speaking in this purport. You please make a note of it. See here. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with a clarified butter and grains. But with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society therefore must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory. That will bring about perfection in human society. Sometimes people cannot understand, what is Hare Krishna people? They are using cars, they are using laptops. Yeah, we will use everything, any gadget, anything, whatever is there, we will try to engage it in Krishna's service. That's a proper utility. That we have to learn. That's what Prabhupada is pointing out here, this purport. So, all class of human beings, everyone should cooperate in the service of the Lord. That's the point being made in this purport. Okay. Now text 38. Iyan asav ishvara vigrahasya yasannivesha katito mayate sandharyate smin vapushistavishte manasva buddhya nayatosti kinchit. So here Shukadeva Goswami says, I have thus explained to you the gross material gigantic conception of the personality of Godhead. One who, Krishna Govinda, one who seriously desires liberation concentrates his mind on the form of the Lord, because there is nothing more than this in the material world. External phenomenal feature was a noumenal principle of spiritual existence. So this is the theme we have given here. External phenomenal feature was a noumenal principle of spiritual existence. So what does it mean? One is the Virat Rupa, another one is what? What is it referring to? The personal feature of the Lord. As I explained to you before. Okay, now Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he speaks about materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engrossed with atomic energy and the gigantic situation of the universal form, and they offer respect more seriously to the external phenomenal feature of material manifestations than to the noumenal principle of spiritual existence. So this is the point. They are not interested in personal. That's why personal form of the Lord. That's why you see those who are materialists, they can't conceive the form of Ram, Krishna, but they are rather interested in gigantic universal form. Now Prabhupada here in this purport is giving a direction how from godlessness one can get into devotional service. Please pay attention to this purport. The transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the jurisdiction of such materialistic activities, and it is very difficult to conceive that the Lord can be simultaneously localized and all-pervasive, because the materialistic philosophers and scientists think of everything in terms of their own experience. Because they are unable to accept the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is kind enough to demonstrate the Virat feature of his transcendental form. And herein, Srila Shukadeva Goswami has vividly described this form of the Lord. He concludes that there is nothing beyond this gigantic feature of the Lord. None of the materialistic thoughtful men can go beyond this conception of the gigantic form. The minds of the materialistic men are flickering and constantly changing from one aspect to another. Therefore, one is advised to think of the Lord by thinking of any part of the gigantic body. You see the link here? Your mind is always flickering, always just going here and thither. So, hither and thither. So, to bring the mind, at least you start meditating on any of the part of the gigantic form. And by one's intelligence, only one can think of him in any manifestation of the material world. The forest, the hill, the ocean, the man, the animal, demigod. Okay, that's what you want to do. Okay, start like that. Each and every item of the material manifestation entails a part of the body of the gigantic form. And thus the flickering mind can be fixed in the Lord, fixed in the Lord only, nothing else. This process of concentrating on the different bodily parts of the Lord will gradually diminish the demoniac challenge of godlessness. This is an amazing point. So when you start gradually developing faith on this gross form, then from there gradually, by that's also another point Prabhupada mentioned in the purport previously. What was the point? With the service attitude. When you start gradually doing that, then your challenge of godlessness will come to an end. Then that will gradually bring you to the process of devotional service. And here is a beautiful link Prabhupada gives to Ishopanishad. Please take a look at this. Everything being a part and parcel of the complete whole, the neophyte student will gradually realize the hymns of the Ishopanishad, which state that the Supreme Lord is everywhere, and thus he will learn the art of not committing any offense to the body of the Lord. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. See, what a brilliant point, no? See, Prabhupada says, when you are conscious that everything, this is a gigantic body of the Lord, then you will not try to exploit the resources. You will be careful. You will not waste water. You will not you will not exploit people. Because your conception is everything is within the body of the Lord. That's how you start looking at it. So first step you are taking, you are not engaging in sinful activity. You are not exploiting. You see how gradually he is making a progress. Now I would like to read one particular purport, wherein what is the problem with some of the so-called followers of the Virat Rupa? Where does they end up? Please look at this purport from 3rd Canto. Sorry?
So-called followers.
Loka?
So-called followers. So-called followers.
I said, so-called followers of Virat Rupa.
Who refers to?
No, in this purport will clarify that. Some of them who are the impersonalists, because in the Gita, Krishna says, Ekatvena pratatvena bahuda vishvato mukam. Bahuda vishvato mukam refers to what? Ekatvena pratatvena bahuda vishvato mukam. It also refers to many other worshippers, and in that also this Virat conception also comes in, and also the impersonalism is also being referred there. Now we will see this purport. This will clarify. Prabhupada speaks about it. Canto 3, chapter 21, verse 31. The first principle to be understood is that this world is a product of the Supreme Will. There is an identity of this world with the Supreme Lord. They say that the Supreme Absolute Truth, transforming himself into the universe, loses his spiritual separate existence. So this is the problem. You understand? We have the Prabhupada gives an example of a paper. When you cut the paper into 8 tiny pieces, the paper no more exists. This is the problem. So thus they accept the world and everything in it to be the Lord. That is pantheism. That's what is being referred here. Wherein everything is considered to be the Lord. This is a view of the impersonalists. But those who are personal devotees of the Lord take everything to be the property of the Supreme Lord. Are you getting the point here? Where the difference is? The Ishopanishad way of looking at it, devotee looks at it, everything to be the property of the Lord. But rather they look at everything to be God. That's also a pantheistic view, but there is... Okay, let's read the purport more. But those who are personal devotees of the Lord take everything to be the property of the Supreme Lord. Everything, whatever we see, is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. This is oneness. The difference between the impersonalist and the personalist is that the impersonalist does not accept the separate existence of the Lord, but the personalist accepts the Lord. Further, Prabhupada discusses more on this, but I just wanted to highlight this point because pantheism is also, some of them they worship that particular form or that particular tiger or elephant, as Prabhupada says they have, but then they think their complete misconception also is there, as Prabhupada is pointing out here, that is impersonalists, they completely misconceive that to be you are God, I am God, everyone is God. So that is a complete misconception. They will be completely ruined. But one who is just worshipping the gross form and have some service attitude, and then he will gradually purify. So that point has to be clarified here. That's why
These people are so-called worshippers of Virat.
yeah, I mean, so-called worship of Virat Rupa actually they are impersonalists, to tell you frankly. They don't accept that the Lord as a form. They say the Lord is broken down. Absolute truth is broken down is the problem. This sense of God-mindedness will diminish one's pride in challenging the existence of God. Thus, one can learn to show respect to everything, for all things are parts and parcels of the Supreme Body. Okay, text 39. Sasarvadhi vrityanubhuta sarva atma yata swapna janekshitaikah tang satyamananda nidhing bhajeta nanyatra sajjet yata atma pataha. Now here nice point he is making. He is saying that sasarvadhi vrityanubhuta sarva. So by concentrating, so again answer is given to that question. No? By concentrating the mind upon the Supreme Personality of God, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams, one must concentrate the mind on him, the only all blissful absolute truth. Otherwise one will be misled and will cause his own degradation. Now we can see here Shukadeva Goswami, after having explained all the different processes, he is in this verse is hinting to take up bhakti. He is pointing out that you take up the worship of the personal form. So he is again coming back and touching that bhakti is the best process. Okay. In this verse, the process of devotional service is indicated by the great Goswami, Srila Shukadeva. He tries to impress upon us that instead of diverting our attention to several branches of self-realization, we should concentrate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the supreme object of realization, worship and devotion. When a man sees anything, he must know that his seeing is secondary and the Lord's seeing is primary. One cannot see anything without the Lord's having first seen it. That is the instruction of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So here in this purport, Prabhupada is pointing out that how the Lord's personal form conception includes the impersonal conception also. So you can see Prabhupada speaking about the Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The theory of simultaneous oneness and difference between the individual soul and the super soul is propounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. The Virat Rupa, the gigantic feature of the Supreme Lord, includes everything materially manifested, and therefore the Virat or gigantic feature of the Lord is the super soul of all living and non-living entities. Are you able to follow? He is speaking. But the Virat Rupa is also the manifestation of Narayana or Vishnu. And going further on and on and on, one will eventually see that Lord Krishna is the ultimate super soul of everything that be. The conclusion is that one should unhesitatingly become a worshipper of Lord Krishna, or for that matter, his plenary expansion Narayana and none else. Immediately he is concluding Prabhupada in the purport that this is what we have to do. This is what Shukadeva Goswami is hinting. Okay. Prabhupada again he is establishing that how everything is simultaneously one and different from the Lord, the creation. He's speaking about Bahiranga Shakti, Antaranga Shakti, and like that. Now in this verse, one nice point is being made where so many things are created by the man in the dream. So Prabhupada is giving that example. Let's look into that example. Prabhupada speaks about the example given in this verse very nicely is that of the dreaming man. The dreaming man creates many things in his dream, and thus he himself becomes the entangled seer of the dream and is also affected by the consequences. So this material creation is also exactly a dream-like creation of the Lord, but his being the transcendental super soul is neither entangled nor affected by the reactions of such a dream-like creation. He is always in his transcendental position, but essentially he is everything and nothing is apart from him. So it's a very good analogy for us to always remember that how the Lord is not affected by the creation or the activities in the creation. Whereas we ourselves are affected by the dream, right? We're affected by the dream. We have the effect of the dream. Okay? So that's a nice point Prabhupada is making here. So, I'd just like to do a small summary of what we have seen so far. Specifically, how the neophytes can advance towards the ultimate goal. So there is the whole process of Ashtanga Yoga. We saw how starting from Yama Niyama, Asana, Pranayama. So for us, that whole point of leaving the house, and then taking bath all the time. I mean, keeping yourself clean by taking bath, and then go to a secluded place, take a seat there, and then so he was referring to the indirect process, and then also the pranava of Omkara, chanting the pranava Omkara was also suggested. Then Shukadeva Goswami again is pointing out that worship the form of the Lord, right? Is the best thing. Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport that yoginam api sarvesham, that's the best process. Up to verse 21 he is explaining that. Now again he is suggesting on the meditation on the limbs of the forms of Vishnu, that is also suggested. And then from there is the suggestion of pantheism. Okay, if you cannot do that, then pantheism. And then again the question is raised by Parikshit Maharaj 22, how to cleanse the dirty mind. So he is asking that how to do that. By taking the association of the Supreme Lord, one can do that. But for those who are not able to associate with the Lord, who can appreciate the form of the Lord, then there is a suggestion given about Virat Rupa. So that's what we saw. Where to see the Lord? There was a question. Where to see, how to see, where to see the Lord? The whole material world is only a part of his Virat Rupa and can be seen as a personal body of the Lord. So examples of lightning, gigantic mountain, etc. This is just a summary we have made. He shows a mystical expansions from his internal potency as Virat Rupa, seen by Arjuna and described in the Bhagavad Gita, and some may meditate on it. Then again a suggestion, he is seen in his Virat in the planetary systems by those who study the planets. The form contains the demigods and they are pleased by that kind of worship. So again, monotheistic approach is given. He is seen in the rivers, his veins, the trees, has, etc. All entities have a duty in that body of the Lord. So also the four varnas. So one should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone can distribute himself in so many manifestations, just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. So here the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Vedattva we saw. The manifestation is one with and simultaneously different from the Lord. So human life gives a chance to escape from the external energy and enter the internal potency. That's what the Prabhupada is discussing about the Bahiranga and then the Atma Maya, all those things Prabhupada discussed. And so that's what you said. Finally, the proposal is that take to the personal form of the Lord, worshipping the personal form of the Lord. Okay. Thank you very much. And stop here. If you have any questions or any realizations or any points to make, you're welcome. Yes?
Bro, text number 26, bro.
Text 26. I'll just going for that. 1 second. Yes, text 26.
So if anyone wants to realize the Supreme Truth by conceiving of the universal form of the Lord, he must cultivate the service attitude. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. So this one, bro, what kind of service attitude one should develop? Because one place was mentioned that we cannot actually serve the Virat form, which is very big.
That's correct. That's correct.
So what?
Okay, now the point is like this. Prabhupada speaks that here. The question is like this. Unless the service attitude is revived, the conception of Virat realization will have very little effect on the seer. So how do we understand this statement? So because on one side it is said that very difficult to worship the Virat form. That Srila Prabhupada points out that practically if you want to worship the Virat form, it's very difficult. But then on the other hand, for those who do not have faith in the personal form of the Lord, so these kind of suggestions are given, like you worship the mountains, you worship the rivers, you worship the tigers, or the worship means you start appreciating the Almighty in these expansions. Now, so what is the service attitude? So there is also a link that we see. So now you start appreciating that this to be some this ability to be some supreme power, and then you start appreciating the nature, you start appreciating the natural abilities. So that itself is a gradual positive attitude in trying to appreciate the power of the Lord and like that. So in that way, then what happens? So then I just see one small link there that in one purport Prabhupada says that we read that. Yeah. Prabhupada says that what he does is he does not exploit any resources. He sees everything as God's property. Then in that way, gradually there is some kind of a appreciation. In that appreciation, some service attitude is developed. But then again, ultimately we will speak so many things. The whole link happens by that what you say, by being little pious and being not being a gross atheist. What happens? He may start to appreciate when a pure devotee comes and then gives a message. He may try to say, give some moral reception, or he may even try to help the devotee. Knowingly, unknowingly, he will develop some agyata sukriti. Then that is also some service he is doing. Oh, these people are building temple. Oh, we will help you to get you some stone. Something like that. He will. Then his bhakti begins. Otherwise, what is the link? How do you understand? This is my little understanding on this. So then gradually he will make some progress by the association of devotees. Otherwise, very difficult. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.